Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, and welcome back to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Tess Brigham. I'm the therapist.
And I'm Brooke Brigham. I'm the attorney.
And today we are back. We are covering the 4-part documentary, Sherri Papini, Caught in the Lie. So this is Sherri's story, her time to talk and tell us everything. And I have many thoughts.
Yes, this is her response to the movie, The Perfect Wife, the Sherri Papini story, which was told from the point of view of her husband, Keith. And then also the law enforcement, the FBI, the local people who were investigating. And we didn't hear from Sherri or hear her side of the story. So now she's back. But before we get into this, we just wanted to say a quick thank you to our listeners, and especially our regular listeners who've been with us for a while, because sometime over the last 24, 48 hours, we hit over 1 million downloads.
Woo! Yay!
Yes, very exciting.
Yes.
Yes, we've been at this for almost 3 years. And I think this is show number 293 or something.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, we both, we work full time, and we've been doing this and growing it, slowly but surely. And I just want to thank everyone who has subscribed and who has listened and supported us and sent us comments and everything. That's why we're still doing it, positive feedback from people. So thank you. We have to thank, oh God, he would kill us if we didn't say anything. Producer Steve, Tessa's husband.
Well, I don't think he would kill us per se, especially since we forgot to thank him last time.
Yeah, last time we had some milestone, like 500,000 downloads. We forgot to thank him.
We talked for like a good 30 minutes. Then we stopped recording. I went back into my house and sat across from Steve and stared at him for another hour. And then you texted me and said, we forgot to thank Steve. And I'm like, oh, crap. So yes, really, thank you, Steve.
Yes, thank you, Steve. We would not have a podcast without you, because we don't know how to do anything audio editing. And that's, his specialty.
Yes.
So,
I was just going to say, and I don't think we would have started the podcast if we did not have him, right? Like this was a huge, barrier to have. Like, this is huge because it's the technical stuff that really is, we could not do. And suddenly there's someone who does this, professionally for a living. And like, okay, you could do it all. So the podcast would not be here without definitely not without Steve and helping us and, doing all this stuff for free and building it all. And, and it's just, does it amaze you that we got here? Or do you feel like, yeah, I knew we'd eventually get here?
Oh, no, it does amaze me.
Mm-hmm.
It does. Yeah. I never really had any expectations about the podcast, really. And, truth be told, there were times when I was like, I don't know if I can keep doing this, because, just it's a lot of work. And that's the thing, people, unless you have a podcast, you don't understand how much work it is. When you listen to a podcast, you just don't think about all the hours that go into it and pre-production, post-production, and then recording it and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And then if you have a full-time job on top of that, it's really hard. But I think the more success we have, the more motivated I get. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm really starting to feel very motivated, and we're, doing some things to try to grow even more. And
we're on YouTube now. We've
yes.
this little place called YouTube.
Yeah. Have you heard of it?
Yeah. Because we just got there.
Well, we after hearing over and over again that most people listen or watch or both all their podcasts on YouTube, that's the biggest platform for podcasts. I was like, well, we got to do that.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to keep up.
Yeah.
Go to the next level. So
yes, it's all very exciting. And, I mean, it's funny because I have another podcast called The Gen Mess with Tess, if you want to check that out. And I work with this podcast producer, and he's constantly like, he loves the name Psycholegal Pop. He's constantly talking about how, he's like, you and your sister, you have something really special. And he's like, listen, I didn't have this many downloads as quickly as you, the two of you, that's the other one too. He's like, you obviously have something there, something special that's there. And I think that when you start the podcast, in many ways, I think it was good because I didn't have any expectations either. So I think for me, I can only speak for myself. It was surprising to me that people beyond our parents wanted to hear, wanted to listen to us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because you don't think, well, yeah, my clients like listening to me, and this person likes chatting with me, and this person over here. But would someone want to listen to what I had to say over and over and over again?
Yeah, I know. So, every time someone, sends us a message that says, I love your podcast. And I'm like, you do? People love our podcast.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that we just want to say a quick thank you. And hope you continue to enjoy the programming here because...
well, really quickly, can we give one more? Yeah. Sorry, I want to give a shout out to Peggy.
Oh, yes. Sorry. See, I knew I would forget.
Terrible.
Peggy. God.
So Peggy is our social media manager. She is awesome. Mm-hmm. There are times I'd be scrolling through and I'd find something and I'd go, oh God, that's so cool. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's us. That's Peggy did that. Oh, wait a second. Like I'm thinking some other podcast. I'm like, oh, it's us. So Peggy works night and day. She is on it. So Thank you so much to Peggy. Because we could not do the social media. We tried. We could not do the it was painful when I tried.
We had no social media. I mean, you had someone who was helping you who did it for a little bit, but she went off to do something else. But we had no social media basically until Peggy came along, and she was actually a listener, and she had posted something, and mentioned us. And I started looking at her, I don't know if I was looking at her post or her profile or something, and it looked like she had experience, doing this kind of thing. So we just contacted her and DM'd her and said, "Are you interested in working with us?" And she was, and thank goodness, because now, I think that's contributed to the growth, obviously.
Yes. Yeah. She's helping us with YouTube. Yeah. And a lot of that, we definitely get a lot more social reach. And I think especially right on TikTok, these videos that she does, there's just no way we could have done that.
She understands, the algorithms and all that kind of stuff. We couldn't do this without her either. So thank you, Peggy.
Yes.
And anyone else we need to thank?
No, I think we're good. All right. So
Okay.
let's jump into Sherri Papini, because I have a lot of feelings, and I have a lot of, and I, the entire time, kept going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Now, if you're a longtime listener of our show, you might recall that very early on, we covered the Casey Anthony story. And I did not know the Casey Anthony story at all. And when I watched the documentary that she did, I was like, okay, maybe, I was kind of willing to believe it. And then a few people wrote us and told us we were idiots for believing her. And, I've gone back and thought maybe I was too gullible. So with Sherri Papini, because I know the story, I have a few more opinions coming in. But I really walked into this with like, okay, what does she want? She wants us to give her the benefit of the doubt. She wants us to walk, right? She wants us to walk in here with an open mind. I'm going to walk into it and watch this with an open mind and really make a decision from there. And, I know. I'm having a hard time here, Sherri. I wanted to be with you, but I just, there's something that feels off. And I'll explain that. So what's your take on it?
I mean, and I'm a very skeptical person. And I'd seen the first documentary and I was like thinking, oh, well, what is she going to say? What is her defense? And she did say some things that are plausible. And I went back and forth the whole time too. One minute I'm like, well, wait a minute, that maybe she's telling the truth. And then I'm like, oh, don't get sucked in by that. And I don't know. And then all the ancillary characters in this, but a lot of them were quite odd. And then but what it came down to is that I'm sorry, I believed that FBI lady.
Yeah.
The FBI did not think that this guy,
James,
ex-boyfriend James, they did not think they didn't even arrest him.
Yeah.
They didn't arrest him, charge him, nothing. And so they believed him, and they said the evidence pointed towards her, like with the phone being all perfectly, wrapped up and coiled on the ground, and just all the things that just didn't make sense with her story. So I don't know, but then I would think, well, maybe she did just tell a really big lie, and then she had to tell another lie to cover that up, and another lie, and I don't know.
Yeah. I think what's hard about this is, I think all these things are true. I think I think there's a thread of truth, right? And every part of this. And the problem that I had with Sherri and believing her, like feeling like, okay, this was a trauma response. The lying was a trauma response, a survival response. Because yes, I mean, right, we talk about this on the show all the time. We're constantly saying it. We need to believe women. So I wanted, I feel like I want to believe you, Sherri. I really don't want to not believe you. The problem that I had was it felt a little bit like when she explained things, she never took any kind of real accountability for the things that she did and she was conscious of doing. You know what I mean? It would be one thing if she said, I was in this really unhappy marriage and he was, let's say, okay, and he was very controlling and I wasn't happy. And so I started, flirting with different guys, and I started flirting with James, and I was leading him on. And then I thought he wanted to come and pick me up, and I was going to go with him. And then this happened and that happened. Like there was no, how do I describe it? It felt a little bit like I'm a victim here, and now I'm plopping a new story in, and I'm still the victim. It wasn't until the end where she kind of took a little accountability, but she was angry about taking the accountability. And I believe that if you are, like the psychologist is saying, if you've done all this work on 5 years of EMDR and you've worked on yourself and you've really taken a step back and looked at it and you're a healthy person, you wouldn't be so defensive, because she was very defensive. I don't think you would be as defensive as you are. And and you would be willing to own up to some other parts of this that don't make you look good. Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit like, oh, I lied, but I lied because I had to do this. There was never this, I lied because I was scared out of my mind. And I was being selfish, or I was being this, or I was being that. That was my problem with it. It's like, there's something off about this, about the way she's talking about it.
Definitely. She doesn't come across very sincerely or very well. She does come across selfish, or maybe it's just defensive. It sounds to me like she's had a lot of stuff happen in her life where people didn't protect her. I think she had a strange relationship with her parents.
Yeah, her parents I thought they were odd. They had a very odd energy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she said that she was, as a child, was molested by someone in her family, not her parents, but also she was very clear to say that a couple times, not my mom and dad, but a family member. So that sounded kind of odd. And I think things happened to her and she wasn't protected. And then, and I think she was always seeking out something else. She's always talking to these other men. And then her husband did that thing where he, made her sign a post-nup. And so that now, if you get caught talking to another man, you're going to get your kids taken away. I mean, that wouldn't even be enforceable,
Yeah.
But she doesn't, I don't think she realized that. And so, yeah, I just think she's real defensive because she just has to protect herself because no one's ever protected her.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that, and I understand that. I think what I have a hard time about is, it was that one, there was a couple psychologists. One was her psychologist, who I thought was a little kooky, but there was another woman by the name of Dr. Sorry, I just don't want to get her name wrong. Dr. Durvasula, Durvasula. I've seen her before. She's sort of like, she's done a lot of these shows. She's the Indian woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's very good. And I liked her a lot. And I think that I really appreciated her perspective because I think it was very right on, which is what she kind of kept coming back to is, yeah, it could be that. It could be a lie, or it could be a trauma response. It could be this, it could be that. It's hard to know. And I think that with all of the education so all the education that Sherri's had, all the work that she's done, if she's done really 5 years of EMDR, which I don't quite understand when she would have done that, but okay. Because she was incarcerated for part of this. If she really had worked through all of these, I just feel like she would have a different perspective.
Yeah, maybe just a different attitude.
I feel like there was a lot of anger and resentment and anger towards the world, like us, for feeling what we're feeling. And, it's just, there's a lot of these pieces along the way. And it's a little bit like she's mad because, let's say she did lie. Let's say all that stuff with James happened. She's mad because, no one's believing me that this thing happened. Shouldn't we believe victims? It's like, yes, but you're not taking any accountability for everything that led up to that. Because there's a big question about whether or not she, of her own, volition, got into James's car. That's this one thing that she cannot remember. And it's the thing that she failed on the polygraph. And it seems to be this is a big question mark of, did you get into James' car or not? And I think that she did get into his car. I think she wanted to escape a little bit. I think that maybe something went wrong when she got there or not. I don't know. But that's the part that bugs me. It's like, come on, can't you own that? Can't you own that you got into the car and that this is where you are now and this is what happened to you? It's her inability to own the fact that, like, even if you backed up a little bit, okay, Keith was controlling and it was difficult. So, okay, he was upset with you. You could have not signed the post-nup. You could have broken up the relationship. Like, there's lots of places along the way where she had a choice and she could have made a different choice. And I wanted to hear her say, you know what? I recognize that I have these problems and I should not have been having an emotional affair with someone else besides my husband. I shouldn't have been going down this road with this person. I shouldn't have been doing any of that. And I take ownership of that. But, once I got there, it went horribly wrong. And like her reasoning for I don't think she ever really gave us a good reason why she identified 2 Hispanic women.
Well, yeah. Well, she tried to claim that she was trying to give soft clues about James, because one of the women looked just like James's mother, but then we find out that his mother is Irish and she's not Hispanic.
And then she gets defensive. She gets defensive of that because she got caught. It's like, well, then no. Yeah. You didn't. Like, this isn't about James. Like, you just picked 2 people. But, that you thought would be easy I mean, quite frankly, I think you picked 2 people that were vulnerable and easy targets. And instead of, again, she's confronted with this at the very end of this documentary. And it's a little bit like, yeah, you could own this now.
Well, and also, I seem to remember from the first one, The Perfect Wife, weren't there some people who saw her coming in and out of James's apartment? Like, she's just free to, walking in and out freely.
I don't know.
I don't remember. I thought there were some sightings of her. Like, she wasn't being held captive.
Mm-hmm.
And and again, he's visited by, all these FBI agents, and they talked to him for a long time, and can't remember if he took a polygraph or not.
He did take a polygraph, and he
passed the polygraph, all this kind of, and they didn't even so much as arrest him.
Yeah.
So,
well, yes. And what's interesting is I didn't know when I started watching this, like, what's her reason? Like, what's the true story? And the minute she put it on James, I'm like, I don't believe that. Because I don't know what James, we just see the pictures of James. But I do remember hearing that interview. I've heard it more than once, where the FBI or the police show up at his house and they start talking to him about what's going on. And you listen to James talking, you're like, this is not a mastermind. Mm-mm. This is not an angry mastermind, abusive person. Like, I've gotten zero vibes, and there's nothing that he did in any of these interviews, even at the very end of the documentary where they have a private investigator go knock on his door. He's in Arizona, knock on his door. Even his reaction to that, it wasn't, get out there, he wasn't angry. He was just like, hey, I really don't want to involve I'm taking care of my grandfather. I don't want to involve. He's like, hey, do you have a comment? No, I don't. I'll contact my lawyer in California, and I'll get back to you. You know what I mean? He was just very calm, rational. And somebody who's that abusive, is that how they would treat a private investigator that came to their house? Well, it just doesn't feel right.
He told the FBI on the first visit, he said, yeah, I went up there. She asked me to go up there and get her. She said that she was in this abusive relationship with her husband. She was being abused and she needed to escape. And that's why they were using the burner phones. And, she was the one who concocted all of this, and he just believed it. And then he told the police he wasn't trying to hide anything.
Well, he did lie when they first got there. He did kind of lie. And then, but the thing is, it didn't take much for him to
about
break.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
Literally
quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, again, he is just not, we've seen enough documentaries with abusive people. Like, this that vibe. I just do not get a vibe from this guy. We have not heard. I feel like if James had a history of violence or of hurting women, which most likely, someone who would do something like this to her would, we have yet to, I don't know for a fact, but I feel like the filmmakers would have brought that out, that he had these criminal charges, or this person said this or that. So there's none of that. And the other thing too is, this is the other thing about Sherri that bugs me is, she had a history of lying, of embellishing, right? Like, is this from her childhood trauma? Where does this come from? But she had this history of embellishing, and there's such anger from her about, why don't you believe me now? And it's a little bit like, guess what, Sherri? It's got nothing to do with belief, but people do not have trust in you.
Yeah, you've told a lot of lies.
And so, quite frankly, there's this feeling of when she's looking at all of us going, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? It's like, yeah, Sherri, I think, some time and some more, like, if you came reflective and understanding, I think I would give you a lot more grace. But you're mad. You're mad at us, at the world, because you lied. And now now you're telling us a new story, and we don't automatically believe you, and you're mad now.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was that and the victim stuff. Like every small little moment where it was about something she did that wasn't okay, she was the victim. You know, and you know, I wouldn't have left. I was unhappy in my marriage, but it's Keith's fault. You know, I wanted to do this thing, but it's this person's fault or that person. It was every time it was someone else's fault. I don't know. So anyway, just to break down, the first episode is really, the first episode, which is called Exodus, really just breaks down the backstory. We meet Denise Farmer from the FBI, who I thought she was a lead investigator. And normally she can't talk about this stuff, but she's retired now. So she's free to talk about whatever she wants. And Denise did not think that Sherri was being truthful. They were suspicious of her from moment one. And we also meet Richard and Loretta, her parents. And I think that mom's very odd. We meet Suzanne, who's her sister-in-law, who I guess Sherri's very close with. And I guess she's closer to Sherri, the sister-in-law, than Keith, her brother.
Yeah. And isn't that sister-in-law, isn't she a therapist or?
Oh, I don't know. God, with a turban. Oh, dear God. Please, you're not making therapists look.
I don't know why I thought that, but she's a wackadoo. She's like the whole time, like, you know, crisscross applesauce, holding this teacup, like this little teacup, like right in front of her, like the whole entire time. It's very odd.
Yeah. I mean, that whole thing was odd. Yeah. And so, and again, we go through this whole thing about, we hear the story about, you know, she had been texting with men to begin with, that this was something that she had, you know, done in the past, and it upset Keith. And, you know, I guess apparently this was sort of a story that she would tell people. It sounds like that Keith was abusive, and this is why, you know, I'm reaching out to you. And one of the other things that I thought was interesting, and Suzanne, the sister-in-law, mentions this too, is appearances. Because it sounds like Denise Farmer, the FBI agent, and Suzanne, the sister-in-law, they both agree that appearance was huge. And it was it was big deal for Keith, and it was a big deal for Sherri. Was how are we coming across? How are people perceiving us? And, you know, that I thought was pretty fascinating. And I think it tells you a lot about their marriage. And, you know, I don't think Keith is an awesome, amazing husband all the time, but you're telling us that your husband is like kind of suspicious of you, or he's asking you a lot of questions. And it's a little bit like, but he doesn't trust you. You know, there was,
it could just be one of these there's a lot of guys out there that are just jealous for no reason, or jealous because, you know, they're insecure, and they think that just because they have a, you know, a beautiful wife or girlfriend, that, you know, any man who comes along, she's just gonna, you know, jump in bed with them. There are guys who are like that for literally no reason. So it could just be him.
Yeah. So she's returned on Thanksgiving Day, and one of the things that Denise Farmer was talking about is in her first interview, it was very bizarre because she was very flirty with the detectives, these male detectives that were interviewing her. She tells this story about how that day she texted Keith, but she told the story about like how I texted Keith to come home for like a nooner. And that is very odd. Like, why do you need to go and why do you need to tell us that? And why do you need those details? And also, is this part of the cover up of the story? Like, it's just an interesting, like, why that didn't need to be shared. And that was very suspicious. And also, the biggest red flags were, you know, women don't kidnap. You know, the two women theory was hard to believe because normally women don't kidnap by themselves. And also both of them were wearing masks. And normally you don't, you know, I guess in kidnappings, people wear masks if you're returned very quickly, but if it's a long-term kidnapping, what they call this was a long-term kidnapping, a long kidnapping, and usually
you're not coming back.
Yes, and they're not going to wear a mask.
You don't need to wear a mask. Yeah.
So and so we hear the whole thing. She comes back. They're dormant. We get the DNA. There's male DNA on her underwear. They trace it back to James. He denies it at first, and then he then comes clean and says, okay, this isn't it. She asked me to do this. And so episode 2 enters with I'm a liar. And this is where we really meet Sherri for the first time. And that was the whole thing. This was the first question they asked her. Like, the producer says, you're a convicted liar. And her whole thing was, well, haven't you ever lied? Blown up, a lie? It's like, yeah, I've lied, but never to this extent.
Not to this extent. Yeah.
Again, I think that you really have to think about you feel trapped in this marriage. You aren't happy. You have these kids. You are acting out the way you normally act out, which is to reach out to men. And this is like, so your solution to all of this is to continue to reach out to these men. There's just so many pieces of the story that are a little bit like, so then you did this and then you did that. Like, there's just, it just drives me crazy. There's no awareness or accountability of all the things that led up to that. I don't know.
Well, she's not mentally well. I mean, you're never going to get accountability.
I know. So this is where we meet Dr. Ramani Durvasula.
Dr. Ramani.
Dr. Ramani. She's a psychiatrist. She's a psychologist, I should say. And, and that's what she says. She says past behavior predicts future behavior. And 2 things can be true at the same time, which is you can be a deeply, deeply wounded person and also a great liar.
Mm-hmm.
And so, apparently after the whole thing came out, Keith pushed her out. And so that's when Sherri went to live with Suzanne. And and that's when she hires a lawyer, and she admitted she lied to the FBI and says that it wasn't these 2 Hispanic women. It was her ex-boyfriend, and there was no consent. And she felt like she had to lie. This is her reasoning. She had to lie because she felt like she was in danger. She had to keep his identity sealed to keep her safe. She also couldn't tell her husband what was going on because I'd have to then admit I was having this emotional affair with James, and I was worried about my whole life falling apart. And I mean,
some of that makes sense. That last part makes sense. I mean, with that post-nup stuff. Mm-hmm. So again, there's like some stuff in there where you go, oh, that's ridiculous. And then there's some stuff where you go, oh, okay, well, maybe it's reasonable that she believed that.
Mm-hmm. And this is the thing about Keith is, I don't know. I can't figure Keith out, but I don't think Keith's an easy guy. I really don't. And I think instead of Keith going, you know what, I can't be married to you, he came in with control and said, well, I'm going to have you sign a post-nup, and I'm going to lord this post-nup over you in different ways. And listen, I bet you anything he lorded it over her. I've had clients who have post-nups, like they lord that over you. I know, I believe that he probably did those things. Mm-hmm. It just bothers me that then she's like, so therefore I had to do this. And it's like, yes and no. You could have, right? Like both of them, were, it sounds like in a marriage that wasn't working, and both of them weren't happy, and they probably should have, separated a long time ago.
But they were like the perfect couple, the perfect wife. And it wouldn't have looked good for this young couple with young kids to get a divorce. So,
okay. So then, and she says things got worse after she got fired. We learned this. She was working at Comcast or AT&T. I forgot. She was working at a big telephone company. And so she got fired from her job, and that's when the control really started to happen. And, that's when the whole emotional affair with James started. And, and then this is where we meet Dr. Stephen Diggs. This is her psychologist. And I guess he has a specialty in personality disorders. And he wholeheartedly believes everything that she has to say. He says that she stopped with the big lies, but that he has diagnosed her with self-defeating personality disorder. And I have never heard of this before. So I'm just going to read a little bit because I had to look it up. I had to, I'm like, what in God's name is self-defeating personality disorder? So it's also known as masochistic personality disorder.
Masochistic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's see. So this is I'm looking at what they have because as of right now, self-defeating personality disorder is not in the DSM. So the DSM is how we write, like, this is all the diagnostic codes. This is what is considered a true mental health issue is these diagnostic codes. And there's always this talk of like what they're going to include and what they're going to get rid of. But basically what this says is it's a pervasive pattern of self-defeating behavior beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. The person may avoid or undermine pleasurable experiences, be drawn to situations or relationships in which they will suffer, and prevent others from helping them, as indicated by at least 5 of the following. So these kinds of people tend to choose people in situations that lead to disappointment, failure, or mistreatment, even when better options are clearly available. 2, rejects or renders ineffective the attempts of others to help them. 3, following positive personal events like a new achievement, responds with depression, guilt, or a behavior that produces pain. 4, incites angry or rejecting responses from others and then feels hurt, defeated, or humiliated. 5, rejects opportunities for pleasure or is reluctant to acknowledge enjoying themselves. 6, fails to accomplish tasks crucial to their personal objectives despite having the ability to do so. 7, is uninterested in or rejects people who constantly treat them well. And 8, engages in excessive self-sacrifice that is unsolicited by the intended recipients of the sacrifice. And when I read that, I don't know if this is I don't know if this is what I'm seeing. Like, does that feel like her and what she's describing?
A few of those things maybe, but I don't know.
Psych Legal Pop will be back after these messages.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because this guy, this is not in the this is not in the diagnostical manual that is considered sort of like the Bible of all of these things. So it is interesting that he's like, I'm going to diagnose her with this thing. And I was reading about it, and apparently they didn't include it in the manual because there wasn't enough data. There wasn't enough research behind it for them to feel like they could. We hear a lot about like narcissistic personality or disorder and histrionic, which is what a lot of people think she's histrionic personality disorders, but they are all part of this like cluster B personality disorders, which are really the antisocial and the narcissism. It's people who, tend to act out in these really big ways. And so when I look at histrionic personality disorder, when I look at some of these, it's like, yeah, she does check a lot of these boxes. And I think this is what Dr. Ramani was trying to say as well. It's a little bit like, yeah, it's hard to know because, yeah, she does tick all these boxes and she could be lying about a lot of them. And the lying is part of the problem, so where do you begin and where do you end? And Dr. Ramani also said something else in a later episode which is as therapists, we are trained to believe. We are not detectives. We are not here to, argue with you about things. We are trained to believe what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I was on Reddit and I saw a lot of people kind of criticizing this guy, Dr. Stephen Diggs. And here's the thing. It's like when you meet with someone, you need to take them at face value. You can't make people constantly defend themselves. So listen, Dr. Diggs, he believes her and and he's treating her and okay, great, fine. But I don't think it's bad or that he's a lousy psychologist because he believes her and maybe she's lying. There's a little bit like a part of this process is you need to believe people and you need to treat them wherever they're at. And I've had people lie right to my face. And when someone shares that much about themselves with you, when you do find these lies or get these things that just don't feel completely true, it's hard to dislike them because there's some root cause of why they're lying to you. And usually that root cause comes from a place of shame, from some deep wound, that they had as a kid. So.
God, this is a real downer.
I know. I'm sorry. So he's describing all of this. So he's saying, this is what Dr. Stephen Diggs is saying. He says, it manifests in childhood when you have this warm, outgoing temperament, but also very passive and very pleasing. You tend to get into unfulfilling relationships. And then you're unfulfilled in these relationships. So you create a secret life to get your needs met. So the affair happens when, he's describing how Sherri is giving this bid of attention to Keith and she's not getting it back from him. And so this is when she acts out and starts this emotional affair. And she lied because she didn't want to disrupt her life and lose her kids, which is understandable.
That makes sense to me.
And that's the other thing too. Here's the thing, it is, I don't want to be cavalier and say, well, she's just sort of gotten out of the marriage because they had very young kids. She wasn't working, right? Like I get it that she felt very trapped in this. And that's the other thing. I been watching the Diddy trial and that's that same thing. If I believe Cassie, then shouldn't I believe Sherri?
Mm-hmm.
Because Cassie felt trapped.
Yeah. And, I wonder, why didn't Sherri ever, seek some legal advice about that? Because that post-nup is completely unenforceable. Because in California, to do a prenup or a post-nup, both parties have to be represented by counsel who reviews it and explains whatever rights they're giving up by signing it. And also, you can't like give away your rights to see your children, or someone can't make you agree to that. That's unconscionable, unenforceable, against public policy. If she had just sought some information and not been and realized that this guy didn't have such a hold over her, and didn't she get some big severance pay package from whenever she lost her job at AT&T or whatever it was?
I think so.
And remember, because she wanted to hire even though she wasn't working, she wanted to hire a full-time babysitter.
Yeah, I vaguely remember this.
Yeah.
It's been a while since that.
Yeah,
right. It's been a year.
I think she had some money. She could have handled this better.
The other thing too is where you have, if you didn't have parents, you had no family support. I can understand that. She had these parents. Why couldn't you go to the parents?
Well, I think she was estranged from them for a while, and that only recently they came back into her life. I thought someone said that. But, I don't know. I think she just doesn't make good decisions, and it might not be her fault. Maybe it's just like a result of things that things happen to people, and then, it affects their ability to deal rationally with other things. And, I know people who you just kind of look at them and you go, why don't you do something? Just do something. they're so scared to do something, make a move, like scared for anyone to get mad at them or whatever.
Well, and I'll also say, because I've seen this too, which is people also don't want to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I've seen this where someone doesn't want to leave the marriage because their partner has a lot of money or they make a lot of money and they don't want to fight about it or they're worried about this or they're like, my partner's, I hear this all the time, which is like, oh my God, my partner's going to do this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, yeah, they may or may not, but either you either want to be in this marriage or you don't. Like they may do all these things, but a lot of people stay stuck in that place for fear of this unknown of something that is never, and maybe it's going to be hard, but they don't, that discomfort feels very scary.
Yeah.
So anyway, the psychologist points out that, that as he's defending her and he's saying, well, people lie usually for financial gain, but this wasn't Sherri's motivation. She lied because of the depth of her love for her children. I don't know about that one. She did all this because she's afraid of her husband. And then there was this talk about these CPS allegations and abuse allegations. And then at the end of the second part, we see her making a video where she's talking to Keith. And it was very weird. Again, you're making this video, but you're afraid of this guy and you're worried about him. I mean, there's just these pieces that just don't feel right.
Well, and didn't those allegations turn out to not be true? Like he was claiming that she was making the kids put their heads inside a plastic bag with alcohol swabs or something to make them sick, some kind of Munchausen's thing. But then I thought someone said that turned out not to be true.
I mean, the family law attorney that really defends her, Kinney and Kinney. Oh my God, we're getting to Kinney and Kinney.
I can't wait.
They claim that there was no foundation for it. And I mean, I don't know. I would think someone could look up the record, right? I mean, we don't know. So, so chapter 3 comes out and that's called Multiple Truths. And so this is all about how Sherri's going to prison. And then we hear from one of her cellies and her bunkie, her cellie, they believe Sherri apparently because, one thing was that obviously her bunkie cellie is Hispanic. And so there was a lot of like, hey,
why'd you do us dirty?
Why'd you do that? And apparently by the end, everyone loved her. She was posing for photos with everyone. So everyone, and this woman says, hey, in prison, you got to be, you can't, we will be able to sniff out the bullshit. So are we cynical and mean because all these people from prison are saying she's a truthful person?
Yeah, you just got to get to know her.
Yeah, apparently so. So I was like, okay. And you guys don't all see this as you're not feeling the vibes are off. Okay. So then Sherri hires Kinney and Kinney, dad and daughter law firm, Brooke, just like you and dad.
I know.
Did that get you all starry eyed?
Oh, well, I love how, what's the woman's name? She has a Chase. Before she could start, she had to get her vape.
Yes, Brooke. How often do you have to get your vape before you start things?
And also, I went to their website, of course, because I had to check it out. So there's a picture of her on the website, and I believe she's holding her vape. Like, it's kind of hard to, it's a very odd, grainy picture, but I swear to God, she has a vape in her hand. So she worked for her father for many years as a, like a secretary and then a paralegal. And then she decided to go to law school and now they're law partners and do family law. And I looked him up, he's had some discipline from the state bar.
Oh no. What has he done?
Like driving
Van Kinney
influence. Yeah. Van. Yeah. Driving under the influence and some other drug things and some things I couldn't open. They don't give you like a lot of all the full information on the website, but they're a colorful pair.
Yes, they are. They are a different kind of law firm for sure. She's there with her little Frenchie. She's living her best life.
She looks like she's an 80s, just got out of an 80s, hair band, rock band concert or something.
Yeah. Or like, somehow she went to prison for many years, and she went to prison in the 80s and now has come out now. Sort of like, oh, these are all my clothes from the 80s.
Yes. The big peacock feather earrings. Wow. That's a lot. Like, I don't know if you are you're looking for a family law lawyer to, tell the court what a great parent you are. You're going to bring Chase Kenny with you.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is I do believe that people should be able to express themselves. And if this is how Chase feels like, this is who I am, and this is how, shouldn't she be respected for any of that? But at the same time, especially I think being a lawyer and, any kind of professional services, you do need to look like you know what you're doing. You do need to show people that people have confidence. And the reality is that the world is going to think a certain way when you wear big feather earrings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I want people to be and do whatever they want to do. But at the same time, there's a little bit of like, you got to operate within the system that we have.
Well, especially that area is very conservative.
Yeah, much more than we are
it's
here.
Very rural.
Yeah.
Very conservative. So it's a different crowd.
Yeah.
But
well,
anyway.
Chase can relate to Sherri because she tells us this awful story about her and what happened to her in Cabo.
Mm-hmm.
And she tells this story about, it sounds like she was roofied.
Yeah.
And assaulted.
Yeah.
And it's awful. And she woke up the next day and realized that she was in the middle of the ocean and she needed to figure out.
With a bunch of strange men
that assaulted her. And she had to go into protective mode, which is, I got to figure out how to make these guys think that I'm never going to say anything about this. And this was just a fun party and bye.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that story and Sherri's story are real apples and oranges. Do you know what I mean? I get Chase where you're coming from, but that's not what happened with Sherri. Sherri's thing was a lot more calculated than what you tried to save your thing was about survival. Sherri maybe had some moments about survival, but a lot of it wasn't.
Yeah, so. She was trying to, I don't know, whatever her motivation was. It was attention seeking or to get back at her husband or satisfy her own whatever.
Yeah. And so again, and this is the other part that just is like Sherri, she tells these lawyers they're taking all this, like Keith took all my money. Anytime I made some money, I had to give it to him. And, and then we hear from Keith's lawyers who are saying, well, she was just paying household expenses. And, it's just, there's a little bit of this. It's hard to know what to believe because both seem plausible. I don't know.
Yeah.
So let's see, in 2023, she gets out of prison. She starts living with her parents. And the mom, so she made some weird comments. One was that she said something about, this was where we talk about Sherri and being abused, that Sherri says in my early double digits, so 10, 11, 12, her dad caught someone sexually abusing her. The way the mom describes it as inappropriate sexual behavior. That's odd. So the mom's not even willing to acknowledge that it was abuse.
Yeah.
So that is odd. And the mom had been, I didn't realize this was her third marriage. And so I'm wondering if Sherri picked up from mom. Maybe mom would flirt with men and use men. And is this mom's pattern?
Right.
And is that maybe right? Like, did mom put you in a situation with someone that she shouldn't have?
Right.
But her description of inappropriate sexual behavior, I'm like, huh? How? And then the dad, who apparently caught the person, is just sitting there staring.
That's what I'm saying. I just, there's a part of me that, kind of feels for her. Obviously, she was not protected growing up, and she was she was mistreated,
Yeah. Yeah. So then we go into this whole thing where they want her to. So one of the big pieces, as I mentioned earlier, was did she willingly get into James's car or not?
Mm-hmm.
Because was it a true kidnapping or not? And she claims she can't remember. And so we see her reenact the jogging and all of that. And she gets triggered. And that, I believe, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could say that she's lying during that part, but to have to go back and sit in places that caused a lot of, a lot of distress. And I've, again, seen this when people put themselves back there, whether in their memories or in, all those feelings will come up again.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I heard some people kind of felt like this was fake, but
now what was the purpose of her doing that reenactment?
I think that so the big question has always been, right, that Sherri cannot remember about getting into the car. She can't remember what happened or anything. She kind of blanks out at that. And so the producers are wanting her to, well, hey, why don't we reenact it? And then, maybe a memory will be jogged.
Yeah.
Now, her psychologist, I think, isn't on board because he said, I would not recommend this at all. So I don't think it was really I think they want some answer from her. And it's like, this isn't going to give you the answer. She's going to get, that made sense. So then we're on to episode 4 called It's Complicated. And, we see this whole section where she talks about she moved into a friend's house. She talks about her crafting and that she doesn't craft anymore. And then this whole thing, which is her polygraph, right? So we go through this whole situation where she's going to take a polygraph and they ask her a couple of sets of questions. And it sounds like what Sherri's saying is that, they believed the first 3 questions they asked. They believed that there wasn't consent involved, that she did not willingly brand herself. There was that one and some others. But again, the big question is, there are some other things that they feel like she may be lying about. The biggest one being, the car, James in the car. The other thing was Mom said, Mom described it not as a kidnapping. She said when Sherri went with James.
Oh.
Did you catch that? The mom's language with things, just watching her was fascinating. There's something about her. And so you can see sort of a little bit about Mom and Mom's personality, and it makes a bit of sense when it comes to Sherri and what's going on with her. So, and then we get the psychologist kind of coming in and out and talking about shame. Shame is, shame's the origin of our lies. And there's a lot of, this was another thing too, is people are very angry with Sherri. And it's this idea of, well, why can't she be a victim? Just because she lied, does that mean she's not a victim? And they get into this whole situation of like, well, we want virtuous survivors. We want sympathetic victims. And I don't think that we want sympathetic victims. We want someone who has lied. We want to feel like what they're saying to us is truthful. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm not assuming everything she's saying is a lie, but it's just kind of how it's landing with me, that it just does not feel right. I don't know. Do you assume? Because anytime, I mean, yes, you might be a liar, but okay, I'll take you for your word right now, depending on, how I feel.
Well,
don't you do that?
Yeah. I mean, everything she says is not a lie. I mean, obviously in this series, some things that she said were true. Some things that she said were probably a lie. We can form our own opinions about what we think might be a lie because of the way it lands, or it just doesn't seem sincere or whatever. But I don't know, at the end of the day, if she hadn't lied to the FBI, nothing would have happened. This is one of those cases where the only thing that they can get you for is lying to the FBI. Just like the Martha Stewart case and whatever. It's like let's pretend she didn't lie to the FBI. Was a crime committed? If she asked him to come up there, or she knew he was coming up there, she got in the car with him. According to him, she wanted him to pick her up. She asked him to brand her and beat her up or hit her or whatever, which I don't, this is just so bizarre.
Yeah.
And, again, it's because she lied to the FBI, which is kind of one of the strangest laws out there, because you can lie to state police and it's not a crime, but you cannot lie to the FBI. No matter what, that is a crime in and of itself. But lying to anybody else is not a crime. To me, it would seem like there's more of, I bet it was more, to me, it felt like a conspiracy almost between Sherri and James. They were doing all of these things to, again, there's not really a crime at the end of it, because all they're doing is, well, there was a crime at the end of it. I mean, all those people who were looking for her, and then she accepted the victim, compensation money and went on disability and all that kind of stuff. So there was a crime there. So, they worked together on this project, to get her to this point. That's conspiracy. But they didn't charge her with that, didn't charge him with that.
Yeah, it's interesting because she talks about, okay, well, I need to pay the state back $300,000. They never get into, because I would want to know, like, well, how did you feel? Like, well, I guess she feels like, I guess she always felt like she was a victim of a crime. Because I'm like, how do you take the money if you're lying about what happened? But I guess she justifies it by saying, well, I'm a victim, so it doesn't matter exactly how I was victimized. I'm a victim. I think at the very, very end, where they ask her about James's mom, and hey, we want to let you know that we did some research, and James's mom is not Hispanic. She looks nothing like the picture that you're showing us, and that she's actually Irish. Sherri's, it's like she's caught. So what does Sherri do? She doesn't own it. She doesn't talk about it. She doesn't do any of that. She's like, oh, well, I've met her a few times. And I mean, it's got nothing to do with being Hispanic. It's like, yeah, it did. We just heard this in the last thing. Yes, it does. You told us that you were trying to describe, you picked Hispanic because James's mother was Hispanic.
Yeah, you were trying to leave a clue. It's like a breadcrumb.
Yes. So then if it wasn't about them being Hispanic, why did they both need to be Hispanic? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's those moments where I'm like, oh, God, Sherri,
I know.
You're making this hard. You're making this really hard to believe you. But I don't know. That's kind of the big question at the end. They interview this other guy who's also, I guess he's former FBI. And, he's just asking these questions about, like, who do we believe? I mean, apparently both James and Sherri passed the same question. They had different answers, but they both passed the lie detector. So
one of them is lying. I
mean, the whole thing with lie detectors, right? It's your heart rate and how you're responding. Yeah. So I think that if there's this debate of, like, can you figure out, because people can cheat lie detectors.
Yeah. Well, if you're a pathological liar, then your heart rate is not going to go up when you tell a lie. So if you've got, if you're, a sociopath or whatever, it's any of these things where you don't think you're doing anything wrong, then it's not going to work on you. And they're not very reliable anyway, which is why they're not admissible. So,
yeah, I don't know. People who have gone through trauma have different kinds of responses when these things happen. But, Sherri never came clean. She only came clean when she was caught.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's like you could have come back home and then lied to the FBI in the beginning, and then a couple months and you're in therapy and you start working things out. And then maybe, even then 6 months, a year later, she didn't even stop and go, you know what? I am lying about this. I was in danger, but now I'm back. And right. You're no longer in that immediate trauma response. So what happens when you're now in a different space? You still didn't tell us. You still didn't own it. That's the thing is that you've never, ever come forward. You've always gotten caught. And then the minute you get caught, but I'm a victim. And I'm going to tell you all these reasons why I'm a victim. And everything happens to her versus that she has control over things. And being victimized, absolutely, that happened. That's not her fault that she didn't cause that. But there were lots of other things that were within her control that she won't take accountability or even acknowledge.
Yeah, and she was really obsessive about the language in her plea agreement.
Yeah,
she wanted
that's weird.
She wanted to minimize her wrongdoing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what liars do. We've all seen that where someone, gets caught and then they start telling stories and the stories are always minimizing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do think that this whole thing of whether or not she got into his car, like she won't admit that she got into the car because then that would mean she fabricated this, and that would mean that she left her children.
Yeah, she was not.
And I know
kidnapped.
that's a big issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how much could she care? But yeah, what was she thinking? Like I don't know. It's just, we'll never know the whole truth. And now she's with this new guy who's white.
Yeah.
Brittany, is it Higbee or?
Yes.
Yeah. Who
something like that. Yeah.
Died under mysterious circumstances. And there's this group called Justice for Brittany and online. And so I don't know. This guy better be careful, or she better be careful.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is like, okay, so you're now better and you're out of this marriage and here you are. And this is the guy you connect with. Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit like, okay, Sherri. Okay. I don't know. Listen, maybe I think that Sherri needed to stay silent for another 5 years. I feel like if she really did the work and really owned all of this and came back around and really did it as, listen, you probably aren't going to believe me. You can believe me or not believe me, but this is my story. I'm telling you. Okay, fine. Don't believe me. But there's so much anger of, why can't you believe me? Why can't you believe me? There's so much resentment.
That's always going to be there. If she hasn't gotten it in 5 years and after being in prison for a year and a half or whatever it was, she's never going to get it. If she's still this defensive about it and is obviously still not telling the truth about at least some things, then she's never going to get it.
I guess not.
This is it. This is the end of the road. And I certainly hope that in 5 years we are not still talking about Sherri Papini.
Oh, God.
I hope that moved on.
Let's hope. Or we're going to be Sherri Papini, part 25. Oh, Sherri's got a new story.
Well, maybe something new will happen with this new boyfriend and it'll be a whole nother different, different story.
Yeah. Ay.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
we didn't solve anything. I don't know.
No.
I don't know if this person's, I think some of it's true and I think some of it's false. And And I just don't believe that guy James is this mastermind. I feel like there would be a lot more evidence of his abuse.
Yeah.
With other people.
He's not. Yeah. No. I don't know. We'll never know.
Yeah.
We'll never know the truth.
What a mystery. All right. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy us, we have a Patreon if you want even more of us and our content. We do a weekly bonus, and we also do a monthly true crime and an Ask Us Anything for our higher tiers. We only have 2 tiers. Please give us a 5-star rating and review if you haven't already and you enjoy the show. That really does help us. Please subscribe. We are on all the social media platforms. We are on YouTube. So tell a friend, tell 2 that we're on YouTube, and you can now watch these shows on video. Yeah, I think that's it. and spread the word. And
yes,
thank you so much
for helping us get over the hump here.
Yes,
1 million
absolutely.
downloads.
Yeah. And then I guess via con Dios.
Yeah,
this is my
how
new.
You say it. How do you say it? Cody said
he said it wrong, right?
What is the real? Is it via
Vias? God, this is sad.
We're going to have to get the correct pronunciation and tune in for our Sister Wives show on Monday, and we will have the correct but sign off. That'll be our new sign off.
This could be. So, in the immortal words of Cody Brown, via con Dios, yes. Everybody. I say via con Dios to my wives and to all of you.
Yes. Mahalo.
Yes. All right, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Hi, this is Hannah Berner from Giggly Squad. Have you ever put on a bra that makes you feel like a goddess? Prepare to be obsessed with the Dream Angels Wicked Bra from Victoria's Secret, the iconic brand behind the world's most comfortable bras. And I only wear the most comfortable bras. The bestseller features an innovative sling for perfect lift without padding, and the fit is chef's kiss. Awaken your inner goddess with new colors and super femme lace embroidery. Find out why this bra has thousands of 5-star reviews and counting. Shop it in stores and online at victoriasecret.com.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.